Thank you. So why don't you start off by telling everyone a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Sure, thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. So, my name's Adam, another Adam. My path into social care was perhaps a slightly unusual one. I was in professional services for 7 years. I was a lawyer in the city in London and then in Manchester. And it was a personal experience really that brought me into care. I was tasked along with my parents of finding a care home for my nana over in Lancashire. And it was sadly a profoundly negative experience on the whole, but we ended up finding a lovely home for Nana where she lived very happily for over 5 years. But the experience prompted me to change careers and wanting to go into social care. And we started the Autograph Care Group in 2019 and I've built a small group, four homes, 180 beds across the North-West and Yorkshire. And we've been through a difficult period, like many, during COVID in particular. And we had some occupancy challenges, we've had some agency challenges, we've had some compliance challenges, and we've been on a journey. But very happy to say that we're coming through the other side of it now. And one of the things that we've had to work really hard on is enquiry management, because occupancy was historically a real challenge for us. And we needed to break it down and we needed to understand what wasn't quite working, and then piece by piece rebuild our approach to managing inquiries, but with really the end user in mind. And from
Mm,
my own personal experience, it's the phone call you don't want to make,
mm,
really. um,
mm,
and in my experience, and for the families that we speak to, and from listening to phone calls, quite often you can hear it in the family's voice, and that they will have done everything possible to try and keep loved one at home. We certainly did. And so that first interaction, which for us most often, it's about 80-ish% is over the phone. You've got to make sure that it's a good experience, that it's a compassionate experience, that it's caring and it's kind and it's helpful. And this is I guess the segue into why this inquiry management piece is super important for your homes, but also super important for the end users and families.
mm. And so when you started just to turn your attention to this a
Yeah,
little bit more attentively, what kind of things kind of struck you? Number one,
yeah.
how did you start to think about improving how you handle inquiries and kind of thinking about what processes that you wanted
Sure.
to put into place?
So the way that we've looked at this is we effectively sat down with a bit of paper and we put it
Mm,
on a straight line. It's a continuum, isn't it? From
mm,
a first phone call or first interaction, or first, in fact, even before then, first starting to think about a care home. Where do you go?
mm,
Most people will go online. So
mm,
what does your digital presence look like? What
mm,
is your review scores, your Google My Business profile,
mm,
your carehome.co.uk, all
mm,
your website, all of that sort of
mm,
stuff. Is it easy to navigate? Is it clear? Does it have helpful imagery? All the way through to first interaction. So most of our inquiries come on the phone, and then there's usually a bit of an education piece at the start.
yeah.
Quite often we get people I know I need some support, but I don't quite know what, or not sure how it's funded, or I don't know how it works. So there's usually an
Mm,
education piece.
mm,
Then you go through to a show round, which is an art in itself, and
mm,
typically an assessment, and then a preparation for move in, and then
mm,
feedback thereafter, whether it's a short-term respite stay or something more permanent. So that was our first step, really. What are all the stages that we need to look at, and then again for us, we're very keen on data and things that we can measure. How do you
mm,
know you're improving something? Well, unless
mm,
you've got a way of measuring it,
mm,
and it doesn't have to be a number. It could be a whole host of different things. But you need a way of measuring what it is and whether it's improving. So we then went through and we defined what that thing was for each stage, and then we worked out. We started off
And
with
when you
where
say we, who was this? You and
in
who?
conjunction with our home managers and our home administrators, and we did it at an away day
Right.
because our occupancy levels were at the kind of high 70s or early 80s. It was
Yeah.
a big problem. And for care homes, your occupancy is your single source of revenue.
Mm.
Everything's downstream of that. You can control costs as well as you like, but ultimately you want to deliver. You want full homes, particularly if you're really confident in the services that you're providing. You know there are people in the community that would benefit from what you do. So that was really the thing that drove us. It was an absolute business imperative that we got it right, which is how we started, and we were quite forensic, I guess, about how we set about looking at it. Then went through a period of phased improvement through each of those different stages.
Yeah, I see. And sort of going from the very, very beginning then, was this action prompted by a recognition from your side that you know, handling of inquiries needed to be improved?
Yeah, so that's definitely part of it. You could do We started to generate more inquiries at the front end because we paid a bit more attention to it. So then we moved on and said, okay, we know that most of these inquiries are coming on the phone. So let's start listening to some phone calls. And we were pretty horrified, actually, by what we heard. And it wasn't the fault of the team at the home. It was because we as a provider had not given them the space, the skills and expertise to actually manage these inquiries properly.
Yeah.
And what we found was our home administrators, I imagine it's the same in most homes, our home administrators or reception teams were tasked with that first engagement. They tend to pick up the phone. And they've got competing priorities. There's urgent admin. They need to be in a meeting. They've just got a visitor that's walked into the home that they need to pay attention to. And we found that some phone calls, the phone wasn't answered as frequently as it perhaps should, and people would call back 2 or 3 times and then they'd give up. If the phone was answered, it was quite often it was rushed. We had a number of instances. I'm too busy right now. Can you call back? Or I'll call you back, but then no contact information was taken.
Yeah.
It was just that, generally speaking, it was an inconsistent experience.
Yeah.
And shoe on the other foot, if you're looking for a care home for a loved one for the first time, the phone call you don't want to make, you might have waited months and months and months. You finally pluck up the courage to make it. Can you call back tomorrow? I mean, how utterly heartbreaking and gut-wrenching is that? Yeah. So that was the thing that prompted us to introduce a template, so just a simple form to guide and with a script. And that was our first iteration.
You had a script.
We've got a script to guide the conversation, not to be so word for word, to guide the conversation.
Yeah.
And just a small number of information, sort of quick reference guides. So if you want to talk about funding or if you want to talk about the process, you've just got an easy guide that you could send to somebody after the call. Because fundamentally our primary obligation...
You would actually send those after the call.
After the phone call. Right. Yeah. Depending on if somebody's very clued up about what happens, then okay, perhaps not. Somebody who's I just don't know what to do and I need some help, we'd send them some information after the phone call. And our primary obligation is just to be helpful and cooperative.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
that's our objective first and foremost. Is the people in our local community. And what we found is that even if we can't support that particular resident or family for whatever reason, if you've been helpful, then it tends to come back to you,
right?
Because you get word of mouth referrals, you get positive Google reviews, reviews,
mm,
you get recommendations, and
mm,
these are absolute gold for care
mm,
homes
mm,
in local markets.
mm. Oh, well done. It sounds amazing. So you have this kind of script to help. Did you do any role plays at all on this? Did you do any practice or?
We did a little bit, but we found that we were grappling with these competing priorities.
Yeah,
And sometimes family members want to stay on the phone for 45 minutes, but
yeah,
if you're an administrator in a busy home, you just can't do that.
yeah.
So our what we've actually done is created across three of our four sites is we've now created a dedicated role to
Okay.
just look after enquiries.
Yeah.
Now it's a relatively recent thing,
Right.
but this is based off our hypothesis, if you like. If we've got a dedicated role, it means we can respond to these enquiries quickly.
Mm.
It means that we can give them the time they need to talk through their
Right. Yeah.
circumstances in a very
Yeah.
unrushed way.
Yeah.
We can provide them with a considered follow up and have multiple conversations if they need that.
Mm. Mm.
And either guide them to somewhere else if we can't support them,
Mm.
or invite them in for a show round, prepare properly for that show round, and give
Right.
our home managers the information that they need, and just generally provide a better quality, more helpful, more supportive experience.
Mm. I see. So you've made you have with the four homes, you've got the specific individual who's
And
handling.
it's one of our administrators
Right.
at one
Yeah.
of our homes, and we've kind of carved out some
I see.
protected
Right.
time. It's one of the homes slightly less busy than the other
Yeah.
services.
Yeah.
Carved out some time,
Yeah.
um, and
Yeah. I
then
see.
set up the text such that he gets notified whenever an inquiry comes through.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
can jump in quickly.
I
Whether this will
mm.
deliver, don't know.
Yeah.
I think it will deliver a better experience
Mm. Mm.
for enquiries. We'll definitely respond faster
Yeah.
to enquiries.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think if we can get those bits right, I
Mm.
think the commercial aspects of having somebody in a more dedicated role will look after themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I see. And okay, so you have this kind of script and you're helping with these reference guides, as you've mentioned, able to spend more time, consideration to avoid this. I'm rushed, I'm too busy, I'll
Yeah,
call you back because I got, the vibe you're giving there is that I, at the home, has got something more important to do than looking after you right now. So
of
again,
course.
it's a terrible vibe to give off. And
Yeah,
all of us, how important that initial inquiry is. Because again, people want to know that you're listening and you're going to help them. And if you give off that vibe that you're listening and you are here to help them, then you've got every chance of them
of
remembering
course.
you just for that.
Yeah, and we know we've got a large proportion of self-funded residents. We're about
Mm,
80% self-fund
right. Yeah.
across our homes, and we know. I think it was Lottie research. You may have shared it actually.
Mm,
That on average, you're competing with five other homes, so you're
mm,
1 in 5.
mm,
Got a 20% chance. That's
mm.
from the get-go.
Yeah.
So if you don't give people a good experience, you can almost guarantee somebody else will.
Mm,
I always when we're speaking to the teams about this, this is how we compare ourselves. And if you sat on the kitchen table and you've got information from two homes and it's really well presented and it's helpful and it's thoughtful, and you've got a letter from the manager with the brochure and the menu and the activity schedule and these helpful guides, and then
mm,
you've got perhaps nothing from other homes, or perhaps something that's you might have a brochure or a business card,
mm,
or
mm,
whatever. It's just gonna stand you in better stead. It's gonna present your home in a better
mm,
way, and you are more likely to get the call back, or you're more
mm.
likely to get an opportunity to show a family round the home.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is ultimately what we're trying to do. We're trying to be really helpful. We're trying to get people into the home if they're the right people,
Mm,
the right profile of resident and family that we're able to support.
yeah.
Um, and give them a really good experience. And as you've said, listen and demonstrate to them that we've listened. I mean, this
Yeah.
is ultimately what it's all about, and what the regulator is really keen on, this concept of person-centered care,
Mm. Mm.
highly personalized care to the individual, and it starts, and it can start at the inquiry stage.
Mm. And tell me about inquiries that might come in. You talk about 80% come via calls, but
Yeah,
what other methods? Emails or contact form submissions or brochure downloads or something like that. How do you would you have a kind of benchmark of how quickly you respond and how you respond? Tell me a little bit more
yeah.
about that.
I mean, we'd ideally like a response within an hour
Mm.
to an email inquiry, and whether this is how others do it, but we've just set
Mm.
up a really, so all of our website inquiries and our carehome.co.uk, they all go into a central Google sheet. So we
Right.
funnel everything into one place,
Yeah.
and we've set up a simple Zapier notification.
Right. Yeah.
So as soon as a new entry gets added onto that Google sheet, it sends out a text message. I get it as well, and the teams get it, that says you've got a new inquiry. So they know immediately they've got an inquiry, and the ideal is that they pick up the phone and they deal with it straight away.
I see.
So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how that wasn't how we did it originally.
Yeah.
They just used to go into a shared mailbox, but
Yeah.
by the time that email is out and about, then you get
Mm.
all sorts of spam, and you get so many emails, and setting up email notifications
Mm.
is a nightmare because your
Mm.
phone's pinging in 10 seconds.
Yeah.
But if you funnel everything to a Google sheet and set up a notification via Zapier, we found that works quite well.
Yeah, I see. And do you have a cadence at all for number of times you follow up and how often?
It's interesting you say that. We tend to find a minimum of 3 to 5 follow-ups before a show round is confirmed. That's a broad brush. Some you might have to email once a month for over a year, because they're just starting the journey and they're just starting to look. In fact, we had one not too long ago, and their first inquiry was 14 months ago, and they came into
Mm.
the home. I think they were admitted last week.
Mm.
But we followed up and we kept them in the loop, and we were sending them a newsletter every month, and the odd phone call. Some families will. It's an urgent need, and that's something else that we've seen. It tends to be more and more pressing when they do make the phone call. It's they
Mm.
need something now.
Yeah.
But even so, it's such an important decision. It does need a
Mm.
bit of prompting. It needs a back and forth of information, possibly some photographs of rooms, possibly different types of fees, possibly some different types of information depending on where the family are at in their journey.
Mm.
Um, but it's unusual that you would receive a phone call or an email, you'd send them some information, and they'd come in straight away. That would be unusual. So it does
Mm.
require a bit of work, which is where just having a CRM doesn't have
Yeah.
to be the most complicated thing in the world.
Yeah.
So you can track and set your next action.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an automated reminder. You've got to follow this up in 2 days or next week, or whenever
Yeah.
it is.
And do you have a method, an approach on follow up? Because so often, I have
Mm,
my view on this, but so often people say, oh, they don't want to be bothering people,
sure.
yeah, with follow up, yeah. Like I have my own view on this. Uh, but anyway, I'm just curious to know, Adam, what your take on this and the follow up and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we this is the most common objection, if you like, that we have from the team. It's I've called them last week. I don't want to bother them, and so I'm
Mm.
just going to leave it for 3 weeks.
Mm.
We, I guess you've got to, on the one hand, you've got to match the cadence of the inquiry. If it's something very urgent, you've got to be very responsive. If
Mm.
it's we're just starting to look and we're not in a huge rush, then you don't need to call them every 48 hours.
Mm.
So
Oh yeah.
I guess that's the first point.
Mm.
But somebody has contacted your care home because they're in need of this type of service, or they
Mm.
think they do.
Yeah.
We're not cold calling people. We're not doing outbound sales.
Yeah.
These
Sure.
are inbound leads that people have contacted us
Mm.
to say, I
Mm.
think I might need your support.
Mm.
Um, and so it's incumbent upon us to provide them with the information that they need, and for us to keep in touch with them until either they've made a decision that actually we don't need this, or
Sorted.
we've gone
Yeah.
somewhere else, or we've done something else, or we've provided, or they tell you, thanks for sending these emails or the calls, but I don't want to hear from you again. Of course,
Mm.
you need to respect
Mm.
their
Yeah.
wish there.
Yeah.
But our approach is, until we've reached a definitive conclusion and the
Mm.
family has communicated we've made a different decision, or we don't want to hear from you, keep it on the system.
Mm.
Just adjust the cadence at which you communicate.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
might go to once a month or every other month,
Yeah.
even if it's just sending them a newsletter every
Yeah.
6 weeks.
Yeah. That's
It's in
great.
top of
Yeah.
mind.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't know. What's
I
your
would.
view on
Yeah, I mean, you're there to help. Have they got the solution and the help that they need? And and the follow up, and as you've been mentioned, most of those other care homes they're speaking wouldn't be sending them a kind of an update, and usually even if it's just what's been
it?
the latest that's going on.
Yeah,
Here, just if you're curious, you can meet our manager. It's
yeah,
so and so. Here's a photo of her. Or just in case you need help on funding, here's another tip that we've got for you.
right.
Or again, and yeah, because if you position it as you are absolutely here to help and make sure they've got the help that they need, you know, at some point, if you are not able to, as I say, you'll either say, thanks, I'm sorted, or I don't want to hear from you again. They're unlikely to say not hear from you again, but it's more like,
Yeah,
I'm sorted, or
yeah,
thank you, for your help. That's probably more likely to actually be the response. And as for the thought, and it's a normal human response, I think. People don't want to do that follow up because they feel as
yeah,
though they are pestering.
yeah.
Uh-uh. People
Well,
aren't responding usually because they're actually thinking about something else much more important than that right now. Yeah. Or else they're still thinking, or else it's usually not that reason. It's not the reason at all that you will be pestering them. It's actually something else. And
and
that's,
this is
nine times out of
the
10
thing
is,
in whoever's tasked with doing that callback. It's the thing that they've made up as to what the prospect or the family or the resident, what their circumstances may be. We
yeah.
ultimately don't know. They've contacted us. I think I might need some help.
Mm.
I'm not quite sure what it looks like yet. We should keep in touch with them until they say thank you, but we no longer need your
Yeah,
support.
and even if it's just an email, so dear Joan, I was thinking about you today. Is everything okay? How's because if
Oh,
it's the daughter called Joan and she was ringing
yeah,
about her dad, Jack, just trying to check in how Jack is doing.
yeah,
Can I help you any further?
exactly.
Again, it's just like it's just position. There's no. I mean, my view is that the follow-up it should be enjoyable for the person doing it because they are there to show that they want to help.
Sure.
In a position of authenticity and genuine human connection, especially around care.
Yeah.
And if you have a team behind you, especially who you think are actually a very good care team, it just makes it even more easy and enjoyable. So all those preconceptions that you have
Mm.
and it takes a while to get over it, but I think because again, not the reality of the matter is that the people are not responding. It's not because they hate you or something else. They've said no. It's actually usually some other reason.
They're just busy doing other things, getting on
Yeah,
with their
yeah,
lives, spinning 100 plates like the rest of us.
yeah,
Agreed. And if you've done a good job at that front end, you'll have found out a little bit about the prospective resident or whatever. Say,
yeah.
we're talking, you've had a call from the daughter of a prospective resident, and you found out during the initial calls that she loves dancing, and you
Mm,
might have, you've got a dancer in the home next week. invite her in for the day.
Yeah.
Charge
Yeah.
them anything, just invite them in for the day, and so they can come and meet people, and they can come and experience the service for a day or half a day or whatever. Or
Mm.
if you've got an event on, or if you've got a summer party or a spring fair or a Christmas do or whatever, it's a great
Mm.
opportunity to invite people into the home. It
Yeah.
just it just takes a bit of, you just got to be proactive with it, and
Mm.
try and try and understand a bit about your prospects, your inquiries. Just try and get to know them a little bit, so you can, if there's an opportunity then to tailor your follow-ups, then it tends to go down. It tends to go down well in our experience.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so, what do you think? I mean, obviously, you've made some changes within Autograph. What do you
Yeah.
feel kind of you learnt up to now on this?
Don't make any assumptions about things that are happening.
Mm.
You know, it's very dangerous. From what one of the pretty harsh lessons that we've learned, you assume things are happening when in actual fact
Mm.
they're not. I think also the power of just having clarity of the process or the steps that you want to go through, and then making sure that your teams have got the tools that they need to be successful. So, for example, if you've got somebody who's dealing with a first enquiry call, make it easy for them to do a really good enquiry. So we've got a template form that everybody fills out along with a little script that just
Mm.
guides them through it. And so at the start they can read it until they get into the rhythm of the call, and then they can start taking down the information, and it guides them through everything in a structured way. Make sure that we get all the information that we need, but also we learn a little bit about the resident and the family member. If you are asking somebody to do a show round, make sure that they're properly trained, and you start the preparation a day before at the flash meeting. You make sure that everybody's involved, and just make it easy for the homes to be successful, for the teams to be
Mm.
successful. This is one of the big things, the big takeaways from this process in particular. There
Mm.
was an expectation on our part, which was a mistake, my mistake ultimately, that the teams were equipped to deal with families that were full of emotion, making these hugely significant decisions in their lives and lives for their loved ones, and hugely significant financial decisions as well. Yeah,
Mm.
six-figure sums
Mm.
potentially.
Yeah, of course.
Self-funding resident, average length
Yeah.
of stay, 2 years plus.
Mm.
Um, Massive decision, and yet we're giving that to somebody who is spinning lots of plates, hasn't been
Mm.
properly trained, and we're
Mm.
expecting them to perform.
Mm. Mm.
That was really unfair.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Interesting. Yeah.
so giving them the tools to be successful,
Mm.
and that's that whether that's scripts, useful information, prompt
Mm.
training, or actually helping them to carve out time in their
Mm.
schedule,
Mm.
is another big thing as well.
Mm. That's great. Thank you
By
for
no
that.
means have we got it perfect, but
Yeah. Yeah.
our occupancy's gone from the kind of high 70s, low 80s up to the kind of 93, 94%,
Yeah.
it's stayed at that
Mm.
90% plus level. So I think we've made some real progress
Yeah,
in
yeah,
that area.
congratulations. I would actually just like to pick up on a point you noted there about the look arounds, yeah, and
Yeah,
being prepared. Because again, families will notice that you've been prepared, yeah,
cool.
versus
Yeah,
not, and that will make a difference. You know, we all know, yeah, if when we get on a meeting or even a Zoom call like this, yeah, if someone is prepared, we will notice that, yeah, and they've given a bit of time, to think about it before. I notice it. I
cool.
notice someone's been prepared, and I go, tick, yeah, you've made a good impression on me because you've been prepared.
Definitely. Even
Uh,
little things like welcoming the family member by their first name. If you
mm,
know John and Sue Smith are coming to see you at 2 o'clock, if
yeah,
they come in, oh hi, is it John and Sue?
yeah, yeah,
Expecting them, and it's a warm welcome,
mm,
and straight
mm,
away they feel relaxed and at
yeah,
home.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
just little things, super important, but also it's it comes very, very naturally to some people, but for other people, it's their worst nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again,
No, sure.
making sure that you've got the right people
Mm.
in the home that enjoy doing this sort of stuff and will do it, that will do it well, is quite important
Yeah.
as well
Yeah.
with family.
Fabulous. Well, this has been great. But before we finish, I just is there anything that you have not covered that you feel you would just make sure you have covered?
I don't think so. I mean, again, these are things that we've learned through experience
Yeah.
of doing it and just making a ton of mistakes,
Yeah.
and scratching our heads and trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if anyone is struggling and they just want to talk it through, I'm very happy to share
Mm.
our templates and some of our
Mm.
tech setup in terms of
Mm.
how we set up notifications. Very happy to just
Yeah.
send me an email. You could get me on
Mm.
LinkedIn, and
Mm.
I'm more than happy to share it.
Yeah.
We've not got it perfect, but
Mm.
we've made significant improvements to our process. So
Mm.
I'm an open book in that regard, and happy to share what we've learned.
That's great. Well, Adam, thank you very much for being on the KSEO Success Stories podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.